Hey everybody, meteorologist Mike Slifer here. Bit of a late evening update with the latest on Hurricane Henri. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the frequently asked questions that I've gotten sent to me, give an overview of what to expect not only through the day tomorrow but into Monday and Tuesday, and just briefly give you some updates and preview what we're going to be talking about tonight at 11. First and foremost, no big changes right now, although I am interested in what the forecast update from the National Hurricane Center is going to be later on tonight. That comes out in about an hour. And the reason for that is because this graphic here shows that the hurricane has actually been slightly drifting east in its trajectory. And that could have some implications for the forecast, and a shift east would obviously mean bigger impacts for us locally, as opposed to everything ongoing versus everything ongoing right now with the current track toward southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Long Island, New York. So here's what we have ongoing currently. Still a Category 1 hurricane, sustained winds of about 75 miles an hour. As a reminder, Category 1 hurricane started at sustained winds of 74 miles an hour. Gusts are reaching about 90 miles an hour. It's moving north-northeast at about 18 miles an hour. But again, I think that the interesting piece to this is that every time you go back and look at the forecast, its actual position is further west than it is in reality, which means we have to think that it's going to end up on the eastern edge of this forecast cone. Right now I'm looking at southeastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, that area, southeastern Mass, to actually see the landfall from this, as opposed to what's currently shown here. That is within the cone of the forecast cone, but it's certainly not the central track. So I'm thinking that we're going to see a little bit of a shift east in guidance moving forward. And that will, of course, shift the impacts a little bit farther east into parts of southeastern Massachusetts, parts of Rhode Island, and across Connecticut. We will be talking more about the potential for heavy rain and freshwater flooding versus the wind threat. So that's what I think is going to end up happening when the new update comes out. And again, that comes out in about an hour. I don't think they're going to change the forecast for hurricane intensity, though, keeping it a Category 1 at least through about 2 a.m., and then we might see it end up as a tropical storm after that. It also still looks like it's going to slow down as it moves over land, which makes this storm a bit unique. Normally, when we have tropical systems approach New England, they pick up speed as they do so. This one looks like it's going to stall out. Not great for rainfall, but by the time it gets to Maine, that means it will have significantly weakened and actually keeps us in some of the lesser parts of the impacts. I don't think it's going to be quite as significant in Maine as it is in other parts of southern New England. Just scrolling through some of the comments here to make sure that I'm not missing anything too much. All right. So let's jump back on to where the current advisories are. Nothing out for Maine right now. We've got tropical storm warnings in effect for the entirety of the state of Connecticut and Rhode Island, with hurricane warnings in effect for both coastlines. This is a very, very tough color scale to differentiate. For people familiar, you're looking at New Haven County, Middlesex County, New London counties underneath that hurricane warning in Connecticut, and southern Rhode Island for the hurricane warning. Tropical storm warnings elsewhere. We still have a hurricane watch in effect right off the Cape Cod coastline, and I think that the reason that this even stayed up, that watch even stayed up, is because of the potential for a drift east back in the forecast track. That also has some interesting implications for our weather tomorrow. And the reason that I bring that up is because the Storm Prediction Center is highlighting the risk for a brief spin-up tornado. Interesting setup, certainly, and anytime you have a tropical system in the neighborhood. It's something you got to watch. The remnants of Faye last year brought our only confirmed tornado of 2020, and of course that occurred near Hiram and Sebago. This, I am mostly interested in areas away from the coastline. We're going to have easterly wind. We're going to have wind coming off of that cool water, and that's going to help to keep things a little more stable. So I don't think that we're going to be dealing with the potential for widespread severe weather, especially near the coast. However, inland areas, especially across southern New England, should be on the watch out for a brief spin-up. There was a confirmed tornado in northeastern Connecticut the other day as the remnants of Fred rolled through, and then there were tornado warnings all the way up the 495 corridor toward the greater Boston area, and thankfully we didn't deal with any of that here in Maine. But the reason why that happened, even though it wasn't a typical severe weather setup, is just because there is so much wind shear with these storms. So all in all, I think that what's going to happen here is that if the storm shifts east, so will the potential for strong to severe thunderstorms tomorrow. These happen in the outer rain bands of tropical systems, and that's what we're ultimately going to see move onshore. I'm going to go through the timing of this and break it all down coming up, but I just want to go through what I'm thinking for actual forecast impacts before we talk about the timing piece of it, because it seems that whenever I do Facebook Lives, people are more interested in the in what's going on with the impacts. I haven't changed our wind gust map much from last night. Still expecting gusts to 30 or 35 miles an hour from the islands off of MDI up through the mid-coast, Portland, back through Sanford, and then most of southern New York County still included in that too. A couple of isolated gusts to 40 are certainly possible, but 40-mile-an-hour gusts even out of the south or southeast with leaves on the trees won't mean widespread issues. I am not expecting widespread power outages with this storm. The bigger story, I think, is actually going to be what happens with the rainfall. Looking at about 1 to 2 inches for Lewiston and Portland, and that includes some sections of Oxford County too. Freiburg area up to about the Route 2 cutoff could see 2 or more inches of rain, and that mostly is just due to the enhancement from the mountain, so the terrain actually helps to squeeze out a little bit of extra moisture. Mid-coast looking at a ½ inch to an inch, Augusta a ½ inch to an inch, Bangor will probably end up with near a ½ inch. There could be a little strip of heavier rain that actually makes its way through Penobscot County or Piscataquis County. Somewhere in that area is where I think we actually might see a couple of spots end up with a ½ inch or more. Northern Maine, I don't really expect much. If you're in the county, doesn't look like there's going to be much rain from this at all. Same idea down east as that storm, as the storm actually accelerates away from us and weakens significantly as it makes its way to eastern Maine and eventually into New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Here's the wave forecast. By noon tomorrow, 5 to 10 footers are mostly offshore. They'll be moving into parts of Massachusetts, the North Shore of Mass, likely seeing some bigger waves around noon tomorrow. We get ours tomorrow evening, and the reason this is a bit of an issue is because it's our astronomical high tide tomorrow. So I think that we're going to end up ultimately with waves of about 5 to 10 feet. Maybe a couple of isolated 10-foot breakers out there, but I think most of them are going to be below 10 feet. Great surfing weather, but that means that the rip currents are also going to be pretty significant, and waves will subside during the day on Monday. And ultimately, this is a short period of rough surf, but it's enough that it's worth mentioning, especially because whenever we get storms like this, you go to any of the beaches, everybody's out there trying to surf. Make sure you're aware that rip currents are probably going to be a bit of an issue. Heavy rain, especially in western Maine, drainage issues could pop up, but I expect them to be kind of few and far between. I'm not expecting widespread issues there either. Gusty wind along the coastline, maybe some minor coastal flooding or some splash over, but really we avoid a lot of the most significant pieces of this. So that's where I think that we will end up in better shape than southern New England especially. I'm going to give a quick glance at the radar right now in Maine. We've actually had some ongoing showers and storms, but those have since started to dissipate. Most of what you see here, there's some radar clutter there from the Caribou radar showing up from Bangor up toward Greenville and Skowhegan into the northwest woods of Maine. That's just clutter, and there looks to be maybe one weak disturbance somewhere in Cumberland County, but maybe near Gray. I still think that that could be some clutter from the radar too. There were some showers and storms across northwestern Maine earlier. Very active across the New York City metro area too. There's some heavy rain moving onshore, and this is all associated with that tropical moisture moving north. And there's the hurricane there, trying to outline its general path and the way that it's forecast to move. No big changes here. And I don't really anticipate, again, maybe an eastward shift, but nothing that really puts Maine in the bullseye. So this is mostly going to be across southern New England where the biggest impacts are felt. Overnight tonight, we stay mild and foggy. It's foggy out there right now. A couple of showers possible even as early as about 5 or 6 in the morning. And as we move through the day tomorrow, you end up with these feeder bands. That's what we're looking at here. 10 o'clock, the first one starts to move onshore. And within that is where we could see some thunderstorms lasting until about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Some of those storms, again, could be a bit spinny as they move through. There could be some rotation locked in there. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. By 9 o'clock tomorrow, we just have tropical downpours around. Not really a huge issue. And even moving on, I don't really see anything that jumps out at me. By the time we get into Monday or Tuesday is where we'll potentially bring some heavier rain through. Notice that, jumped way ahead there. Notice that this particular model has some heavy rain through southern New Hampshire at about 7 o'clock on Monday. And I think that's pretty good forecast time. And that makes it all the way up to like Carroll County, New Hampshire, before it ultimately starts to fall apart. And those heaviest rain bands miss us on Tuesday morning, but there still could be some tropical downpours that make their way through before all is said and done. But this storm is well off to our east as early as about noon or 1 or 2 p.m. on Tuesday, which means big improvements for us locally, which is great, but still certainly something that we'll watch in case there's a shift there. Any shift in the track could always have implications as to what happens here. But a landfall a little bit further east puts Maine in a more favorable position for some stronger storms tomorrow, and also means that we could have to shift our rainfall forecast slightly to the east too. But this is what I'm thinking for right now. Let me see if there's any specific questions. All right, I don't see anything specific here. All right, I think that's going to do it for us. I'll give a quick rundown of the 7-day too, just so we can talk about where we go after this. Essentially, what I'm expecting to see is showers sticking around Monday, and obviously it's going to be quite humid out there too. By Tuesday evening, a bit of sunshine peeking through. Wednesday looks hot and humid. I'm thinking 90 degrees inland with a lot of sunshine, so really nice summer day, very summery. Cold front comes through Thursday. Behind that, we try to change out our air mass. It's not very quick to do so. It's a bit slow to do so. So it's less humid Friday, but still a bit humid. And Saturday is looking much nicer. Similar idea at the coastline, where we'll see tropical downpours through Tuesday. Sunny and hotter on Wednesday, mid-80s at the coast. Late storms on Thursday, and since the cold front moves in from north to south, it's possible that we actually could end up back in the upper 80s on Thursday ahead of that front again, and then we'll be less humid for Friday. We'll be back on TV in an hour with your 11 o'clock news, and I will also have the updates from the National Hurricane Center at that point in time, and my hair will be fixed by then too. That's what happens when you go outside and it's wicked foggy and humid like this. You end up with some crazy stuff happening to your hair. So thanks everybody who tuned in here. We'll have more updates again in about an hour on TV. We've got a fresh weather blog up for you to read through and have all the info right there at your fingertips. Thanks for sticking with News Center Maine.